Hey guys, it's Brooke. Welcome back to my channel, or to my channel if you're new here. I hope you guys stay. So it is a Monday today, which means that today's video will be an unsolved murder mystery video. And for today's video specifically, I am going to be talking about the unsolved murder of JonBenet Ramsey and all the conspiracy theories of what happened to her. Really quickly before we start, if you guys can, please leave this video a thumbs up, and also pretty please subscribe right down below. It would make my day. Also, make sure you guys ask me questions in the comments below or tweet me some questions using the hashtag AskBrooke at brookeelardo, and I will feature you guys in my Q&A next week. All my social media is in the beginning of this video, so if you need to look at what my Twitter name is, you can find it there, and tweet me some questions and I will feature you guys in the video and shout you guys out. So yeah, let's get into this video. So in today's video, we will be discussing the unsolved murder of 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey. JonBenet Ramsey is a little girl from Colorado who had big dreams. She was a beauty pageant star in the making. Her name was getting out there and she was getting pretty famous, and she was on her way to stardom. However, JonBenet's dreams would be short-lived as she was found murdered December 26th, 1996. At only 6 years old, this poor girl was killed and her whole entire future was just taken away from her. It breaks my heart, and that's one reason why I chose to talk about JonBenet. I like to make my videos about things that really interest me, and this is something that just, I feel so bad for this little girl anytime I think about her, and I just wanted to talk about this and throw out some theories to you guys about her murder, because it is still an open case and there was no murderer found. And it's just such an unsettling feeling, and especially for her family, I can't even imagine how they feel, but it just gives me the chills. So let's talk about JonBenet. So as I said, JonBenet was only 6 years old when she was killed. The morning of her murder, December 26th, 1996, her mother, Patsy Ramsey, went downstairs to go make herself a cup of coffee, and she found a 2-page ransom note on her stairs, stating that these people had taken JonBenet Ramsey and that if her family ever wanted to see her alive again, they'd have to give $118,000 to this place or this person or something like that. Right after Patsy had found that letter, she woke up her husband and they immediately called the police. Patsy Ramsey and John Ramsey looked over the entire house and couldn't find her anywhere. And it wasn't until 8 hours later, when the police had been there for a while looking for her, looking for clues, that John Ramsey, JonBenet's father, went into the basement and found the body of his little girl. Her body was not intact. She had a blow to her head. She had these 2 dots on her neck that people thought was from a stun gun, but we will get into that later. She also had a homemade garrote tied around her neck, and she had looked like she'd been strangled. So John Ramsey had taken the body upstairs and was screaming, and everybody was just a mess, and I can't even imagine what those circumstances were like. So there are a lot of theories surrounding this case of who murdered her, and this case is still an open case today because the police have yet to find significant evidence of who murdered JonBenet Ramsey. There was DNA testing done on JonBenet Ramsey, and they had found that there was DNA on her underwear of a complete stranger that nobody knows whose DNA it is. There's also animal fur found on her body and found on the duct tape that was covering her mouth, and nobody knows whose animal's fur it was or where it came from. So yeah. So now let's get into the theories of who killed JonBenet. So the first theory is that JonBenet Ramsey's mother, Patsy, killed her. Patsy, in her time as a child, was a beauty pageant star as well. She was known to be one of those stage moms who was very hard on her daughter and worked her daughter very hard, and some people would say that she kind of almost lived through her daughter and lived her dreams through what her daughter was doing. And a lot of people also think that because she was so hard on JonBenet Ramsey, that maybe she was also abusive towards JonBenet Ramsey. People discovered that JonBenet Ramsey used to wet the bed a lot, so that could be a sign of stress or fear in a child. And so this being said, they think either one or two things. They think that Patsy Ramsey could have been making her do dances or pageant things over and over, and maybe she wasn't doing them well enough, and maybe Patsy Ramsey had shoved JonBenet, and maybe JonBenet hit her head a little too hard, and so the mother and father tried to cover this up by making it look like a stranger had done this. Or the other theory is that JonBenet had wet the bed and her mother was yelling at her and again pushed her too hard and she hit her head, and again they tried to cover this up and play it off as if someone else had done it. Does this explain the strangle marks? Not really. Does this explain why after her hitting her head she would put a garrote around her daughter's neck? No. And do I think a parent could stomach even doing something like that? I'm not sure. But another reason why people think that it was Patsy Ramsey who did it is because after the autopsy of JonBenet, they found pineapple that wasn't digested yet in her stomach, and they found a bowl of pineapple on the countertop. When the mother was asked about this pineapple, she said she had no idea that JonBenet was eating pineapple before she went to bed, and that she had no idea how she got it, but there were fingerprints of the mother's hands on the pineapple. And they say that she had eaten it only an hour before she was murdered. So we know that the mother was awake an hour before JonBenet was murdered. However, I don't really know what pineapple so much has to do with it. I'm wondering if maybe if someone puts a bowl away, maybe the mother had put the bowl away and that's why her fingerprints could have been on the bowl. I don't know. A DNA test was done with the ransom note as well, and they compared the mother and the father's handwriting to the handwriting of the ransom note, and they said that a lot of the letters looked similar to Patsy Ramsey's handwriting. The letter was also written on her desk, and it was written straight out of one of her notebooks. So this all kind of makes it seem like she had written the ransom note and was doing this to cover up the murder of her daughter. But that is why people believe that Patsy Ramsey killed her daughter. Now, the second conspiracy theory is that JonBenet's father, John Ramsey, killed her. During the autopsy, people found that JonBenet had been being sexually abused for quite some time. So a theory came about that JonBenet's father maybe was sexually abusing her, and maybe she was trying to get away, which would explain the strangle marks, and maybe he had hit her head on something, and the mother and the father decided to cover this up because she loved her husband and she didn't want him to go to jail. So maybe they tried to cover it up and make it look like it was a random murder, or maybe the mother didn't even know and the father just tried to cover it up himself. Another reason why this theory is so believable is because the father, the day that his daughter was murdered, was on the phone trying to book a flight out of there. In front of the police, in front of everyone, he was trying to book a flight to leave. Why would you be worrying about booking a flight to go somewhere the day you find out your daughter was murdered? That to me is just insane. He's also said to like kind of downplay this and kind of just be like, it must have just been some random pedophile, like let's just move forward from this. It happened, it is what it is. Which is very weird to a lot of people because I don't know many fathers whose daughter would be murdered in their own house who would just be like, it is what it is, like let's just move forward with this. A pedophile did it, like this is fine. Like I know if I had a child and that had happened to my child, I wouldn't stop every single day until I found who had killed her. The third theory is that JonBenet's brother had murdered her. At the time of the murder, JonBenet's brother was only 9 years old, and this theory kind of makes a little bit of sense, and there's sort of evidence to back it up. So JonBenet was kind of the star of the family, and her parents had constantly been giving her attention. So people believe that JonBenet's brother may have gotten very jealous and wanted attention for himself, and maybe one night he decided to push JonBenet and accidentally made her hit her head, and so maybe the parents tried to cover it up, making it look like some random guy murdered their daughter so that their son didn't go to jail or get in trouble for it. JonBenet's body during the autopsy was found to have 2 dots on her neck, and at first the police believed that it was a stun gun that had done that to her neck, but evidence shows in the basement there were actually these train tracks with these little pickets on the ends of them that looks like that was just like jabbed into her neck or something. And the train tracks of course belonged to her brother, so it kind of seems like he could have possibly been the one to murder her out of jealousy. He also, during his interrogation, when the police were asking him questions, sounded like he was just saying things that sounded right and answering in ways that sounded rehearsed. Like when the police were asking him questions, he would be like, I don't recall. Like what kind of 9-year-old says I don't recall? It just sounds kind of strange. And recently, Dr. Phil had done an interview with the brother, like maybe 2 years ago or something, talking about the murder of JonBenet. And when he's asking about JonBenet's murder and is asking if the brother murdered her, the brother's going, nope, and just kind of smiling and laughing, and he looks a little bit crazy, if I do say so myself. So for me, he is a definite strong candidate for who would have murdered JonBenet. The fourth conspiracy is that a Santa Claus murdered JonBenet. There was this man by the name of Bill McReynolds who would go to their house every Christmas dressed up as Santa Claus, and there's a theory that he could have been the murderer because the day before JonBenet's murder, he gave JonBenet a note and said that she would have a very special surprise the day after Christmas. His daughter had also been abducted and killed 22 years prior to that, the day after Christmas, just like JonBenet. And this guy Bill also wrote a play about a little girl who was being sexually abused in her basement and murdered. So I don't know about you guys, but I mean, that to me sounds like a psychopath killer a little bit to me, if you ask. But nevertheless, the DNA on her panties still doesn't match any of these people. And though there was snow on the ground, there was no footprints leading to any suspects, which leaves the murder still unsolved. But there is one last conspiracy theory, and that has to be the creepiest of them all. It's about this man by the name of John Mark Karr. So John Mark Karr was an acquaintance of Patsy and John Ramsey, and this is the most terrifying thing to me. So I found this on this website called Business Insider, and it says that he had been arrested on multiple charges prior to this, including child pornography, which is, I think, a red flag in and of itself. And it says that he claimed he was in the Ramsey's house the night of the murder and saw JonBenet die, but he wasn't the one who murdered her. In quotes, he said, "Nobody wanted that little girl to die that night. Nobody. Her death was an accident. I was with her when she died, but I was not the person who caused it." He claims that he still knows the identity of the killer. He says that he staged the crime scene in order to throw the police off the track of the real killer. Karr was cleared from any charges after no tissue samples or bodily fluids matched his at the scene, contradicting his own story. So basically, this guy claims he was there the day that she was murdered. He watched her get murdered. He knew who murdered her. And because some parts of his stories were contradicting, he got let free and he isn't a suspect anymore. I don't understand that. If that's a lie, I don't understand why he would lie about that, why he would say that he was there and he saw her get murdered, why he was saying nobody wanted her to get murdered, nobody wanted that to happen. Like, that gives me the chills. But also I don't understand why he was like let out, like why they didn't keep him in jail until he confessed who it was. He says he knows the identity of the person who murdered her, but nothing's being done about that. That just boggles my mind. But anyway, that was the conspiracy theories of JonBenet Ramsey's murder. If you guys like this unsolved murder mystery, please leave this video a thumbs up. Also, make sure you guys subscribe right down below. And leave some comments down below of letting me know who you guys think murdered JonBenet Ramsey. I personally am torn between like the mother and father and that guy, John. I don't really think it was the Santa, and I'm not too sure it was the brother. Like, if the little 9-year-old brother could pull something off like that by himself, maybe the parents helped, maybe the entire family was in on it. Like, I have no idea. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys on Wednesday, and have a great rest of your day.